All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Good Morning Japan. I'm here with Robert and John. John is our guest today. Robert, say hello.
Hello, everyone.
John, say hello.
Hey, what's up, everyone?
Okay, everyone. Our buddy John here. He is a ex Jehovah's Witness, and he's here to tell us about a little bit about how he got to that position in life, and also about how he's helping other people get out of that religion, that cult. All right, John. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you to where you are in life right now?
Yeah, I'm Jon Galnarez. I'm a Mexican living here in Houston, Texas. Uh, I didn't. This like get interviewed, talk about their thing, the thing that they're after. It's sometimes it's usually something that they chose. I didn't choose this, and I think that that has like probably the biggest impact on this topic is that a lot of people who find themselves within a cult like Jehovah's Witnesses, within a religion, that they didn't necessarily choose it. Sometimes they ended up there, or they didn't know what they were getting into, and then once they were, like once they got in the middle of it, they realized how heavy it is, and then they try to get out. For me, I was born in it. Uh, uh, Pretty much, I was about 4 years old when my mom started, when our parents started attending Jehovah's Witness meetings. Uh, like the same experience. They started young. Their parents made them go to the meetings. They it's just like any other church. They have, but that's when things start getting weird. Once you start getting old, about are getting talked about in the Kingdom Hall, you start realizing that things didn't know how deep it would get, and it got deep really, really quick. And I think that's what makes me such an so passionate about the subject
Okay, let
is
me
the
ask
fact
you.
that a lot of people really there is little to no information. Yep.
Oh, right. This is Jeremy. Let me
Uh-huh.
ask you a little bit, some questions there. So it's interesting that you pointed out that you didn't choose to become a Jehovah's Witness; that you were kind of born into it. I think that's the case with a lot of people who end up in religions. That's here in Japan we get a lot of Mormons and people who come around and they'll be like an 18-year-old kid who comes up to you and says, "Let me tell you about life and everything." And I'm like, "Listen, kid, yeah, I got children that are older than you, and you didn't choose your religion. You were given your religion by your parents."
Yeah.
And so that seems to be
Yeah.
the case that with yourself, that you were just kind of like born into it, and you went to those meetings, and the meetings were fun when you're a kid because they have music and they tell stories, and they have little cookouts and haunted houses and hay rides, and those are all little traps that they set along the way to keep you involved in their community so they can wrap their little claws around you. Wouldn't you agree? We might be having a bit of an internet problem.
Here, hold on.
Yeah. If you need to turn off your video to save bandwidth, go ahead and do that. That's fine.
Is that better?
It's working now.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, no, I completely agree, man. And it's uh, religion is one of those weird topics that everyone at first has some sort of hesitation to because it's so fragile, and with like with complete reason. It's a lot of people's complete worldviews are built around the religion.
Right.
So even though it's religion, it gets tossed. It's a topic that everyone talks about all the time, and now I think that most people have learned to have thick skin about it when it's just jokes, when we're just talking about religion. Oh yeah, God in the sky. People just take it. But then if you really sit down with someone and you start to like pry and you're like, hey, so do you really believe it? Like that's when things start to get overwhelming really quick. Um, I think uh, uh, a good place to start with the Jehovah's Witnesses first would be a little bit of their history
Yeah,
with
tell
how
us
they
what they're all
started.
about. Yeah, tell us how they
Yeah,
started and what their history is
and
like.
then once I bring everyone up to speed a little bit, I think that I can start pitching in sort of how it impacted me and the insight that I've been able to gain because I think we need first like a frame of reference for how they started.
Okay.
this started. This came from a time in America. This was in the 1860s. In the 1860s, it was a very weird time in America because there was a lot of what I like to call like dead time, just nothing going on, and just literally just people would just wake up, go to work at the plant, just go sow, go work the fields, and get back home, and that's it. And there was nothing else going on. And a lot of people, like were religious, and Charles Taze Russell came around in this time. I think he was born in 18. I'm not sure when. 1852, I think. I'm cheating. I got my notes, so I got
That's
some
okay.
dates for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Charles Taze Russell was born in 52, and he didn't really get started into religion until he was about in his 20s. And it this is the night when it starts. If you read Jehovah's Witness literature, this is even how they started. And I've read some of the Jehovah's Witnesses literature on their own history,
Mm-hmm.
and it is whitewashed, but for the most part, you can sort of get a good narrative from it. And it pretty much just talks about Charles Taze Russell being a seeker. He didn't have anything solid. He would just go from from pastors to pastors. He would just go from church to church. And the witnesses like to romanticize it like this. This is the words that they put it in. They say that
Okay.
one cool evening he was walking by, down Federal Avenue in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and he heard singing from a basement. And this is the story. This is the story that gets rehashed. He walks by the basement, walks down into the basement, and he sees a group of Bible students just singing, and just and then they stop, and then they start, talking about the Bible, and then someone gives a speech, and Charles Taze Russell is immediately just filled with passion,
Mm.
and he knows that he found something, and he knows that he wants to keep reading and studying about the Bible. So he starts studying. Him and his friends, they start, they make a book club, and every
Okay.
week they get together and they start reading, they start talking. They start talking with the local intellectuals, and this is where other people like Ellen White, from the Seventh Day Adventists,
LNG White.
this is
Yeah.
where they come in. There's this huge melting pot of ideas. People are bouncing. People are trying to get some sort of handle on the Bible and what it means. Because again, like I honestly think that a lot of it has to do with, the vacuum of the situation. Not a lot of people knew what the Bible was, and we're going in the late 1800s. Things are ramping up. Industrialization is picking up. Rhetoric is picking up, but it's not quite there yet. Yep.
So, well, just to touch on what you were saying there, a lot of people, even to this day, don't really read their Bible. They're kind of told what the Bible says. The
Hmm.
Bible says this, the Bible says this, but there's not a lot of people who've actually sat down and read it cover to cover. And a
Right.
lot of us who are atheists say that the quickest path to atheism is to read the Bible because it's
Right.
so full of like child molestation, murder, rape, talking animals, magic and witchcraft. It's full of all these horrible things. Not magic and witchcraft are not horrible, but I'm just saying it's full of all these things that in the 21st century that we'd find really gross. Like telling people how to own other people, how to own slaves, where to buy your slaves from, kill all these people here, but keep all the female children who haven't known a man for yourself. That's just basically telling them to pick up all these little kids and, rape them or
Yeah.
whatever for themselves. But like what you were saying, back in those days, people didn't have a full grasp and didn't really read the Bible because looking at back at Bible history, it's been written in Hebrew, and it was written then it was written into Greek, then it was translated into English, right? And before Martin Luther King, no one,
Martin Luther.
yeah,
Luther.
Martin Luther
Luther
King,
translated the Bible.
yeah, he translated it so the average man could read it. And
Right.
before that, no one really knew it. They were just basically told this is what the Bible says. You should do this.
Yeah, and
So
even
I just
even
wanted to,
some of the later stories were like dragons and snake swords, and
yeah,
like you get near the apocalypse and it gets really wild.
it
Like
gets like
Yeah.
an acid trip, bro.
Jesus isn't going to come back in robes. He's going to come back all distorted from what I've heard of the
Right.
Bible's ending.
That is the detail that all these early Bible students, and this is actually like a phase in America's history. It's called the Bible student phase, and the Bible student phase is what gave birth to the Seventh-day Adventists, as
Yep.
well as the Jehovah's Witness and other different denominations.
Mhm.
And they were all obsessed over the millennium. So in the Bible, at the
Mm.
end in Revelation, there's this prophecy that sort of specifies that after Armageddon comes, after the last day or whatever, there's going to be a millennium of Jesus Christ's reign. And this is where it gets really trippy, because this is where Jesus talks about how all the things that will lead up to the thing. And the Jehovah's Witnesses, they got obsessed originally with that millennium
Mhm.
and with Jesus' return, the second coming. And that's when fuckery started, because they started using that as oh, we're in the last days, you guys better come, and join with us. And they got really, really fixated on several last days. Like, the Jehovah's Witnesses have a really bad track record of trying to predict the doomsday, and they haven't hit it yet,
Right. They
and
Oh yeah,
predicted
yeah.
several
I've
times.
noticed.
Yeah.
right, several times.
Yeah.
It happened, I think, in I think
1844 was the
18
first one.
right. There's a couple before, and then those were like still small. And when they started, I think in 1889, Charles Hayes Russell started publishing the Watchtower. He
Mm.
started getting more readers. Then he started touring. He started going from town to town, like giving speeches. And he once he started amassing readers, he got a lot of people in it. Originally, they thought that the 144,000 that are mentioned, they thought that was their limit. There's going to be 144,000 of us, like, that are going to make it, and that's it. But then,
Literally, not
they
figuratively.
exactly, literally. And then when they realized that they had a lot more than 200,000 followers, then they started like, okay, well, the prophecy, the number doesn't make sense with all the followers, so something's off here.
Right.
And they started editing the belief. Like, at first, it was originally that only 144,000 people were going to be saved, and that's it. Charles Hayes Russell really believed in a rapture
Mhm.
sort of doomsday. Like, one of these days, like, all the evildoers will be destroyed, and the good people will literally be raptured into heaven. That didn't happen. So, but by the end of the 18th century, um,
It
they
would be
started getting a little bit.
19th century.
I'm sorry, end of the 19th century,
Yeah.
right? End of the 19th century, they started gaining a little bit more momentum, and they started, getting thousands of people in. And this is when they started leading up to their 1914 prophecy. They wanted 1914 to be their year, and they were actually they were pretty disillusioned when nothing happened until the end of the year, and then at the end of the year we had World War I start.
Right.
And this is where things get really, really crazy, because the Charles Taze Russell died 2 years after that, in 1916.
Okay.
And then his successor, J.F. Rutherford, he took control of the Bible students. At this point, we don't have Jehovah's Witnesses yet. It's not 19. We don't have Jehovah's Witnesses until 1931. That's when they were formally declared the Jehovah's Witnesses. And they used Isaiah 43:12, I think,
Mhm.
as their basis for it. Because that's where God calls on His servants to be my witnesses. You will witness the blah 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 blah.
Okay.
So J.F. Rutherford takes control in 1916, and he's a lot more. He's a lot different. Russell was the weird guy. Russell was into the esoteric. Russell was into the millennium. Russell was into the second coming. Rutherford was a lot more sly, and he was a lot more careful, and he thought more like a lawyer and like a businessman.
Okay.
He thought more in terms of recruiting and in terms of organization and hierarchy, whereas Russell was actually more of a seeker. If you could like sort of fit them into archetypes, I guess you could probably say that Russell was a little bit more naive and well-intentioned, and then Rutherford saw what Russell built, and Rutherford is like, oh, okay, I know how to steer this thing. And this is where things get really, really crazy, because Rutherford goes almost bananas. Rutherford is he so the witness publication the Watchtower Tracting Society starts off as a Zionist publication company.
Okay.
They publish like pro-Israel stuff. And Rutherford in the at the beginning of the 1930s, this is when fascism starts rising up in Europe, with the rise of this is after World War I, when fascism and the strongman authority figures start rising up in Germany. Rutherford actually switches, and Rutherford starts publishing anti-Semitic stuff
Okay.
in using the Watchtower as a platform. And here I actually found this cool I found this website, and it's got this cool little clip. I learned this like probably like in the last 2 weeks. Here, where's that window at? There we go. I found this in the last 2 weeks reading up to this. I didn't. I've been writing my book for like a year and a half now, and I
Right.
never stumbled into this Nazi stuff, it blew my mind when I started reading into this. But allegedly, J.F. Rutherford. So Rutherford wrote a here. Where is it? Okay, Rutherford. In 1933, a declaration regarding the Jehovah's Witnesses ministry and its objectives was adopted by Jehovah's Witnesses at an assembly in Berlin. Copies were sent to all high government officials, and millions more were distributed to the public. On Sunday morning at 9 o'clock, here it is. Early the following year, a personal letter regarding the situation was written by J.F. Rutherford to Adolf Hitler and delivered to him by a special messenger. Then the entire worldwide brotherhood went into action. So when J.F. Rutherford saw that Hitler started taking power,
Right.
he said, we're going to get on his good side, and we're going to send him a letter, and we're going to tell him that the witnesses actually agree with all of the Germans' points of view on ethics. In that letter, and this is called the letter to Hitler. You can actually look it up. J.F. Rutherford's letter to Hitler. Rutherford pretty much condones everything that the German nationalist party is doing. And he's saying, hey, just please don't turn your back on us,
Right.
We won't preach anymore in Germany. We won't preach, but please let Jehovah's Witnesses meet and pray together, because that's what we want to do. Hitler didn't like that.
Yeah,
And
I was going to say he wouldn't actually. What I
no,
know of him, he wouldn't have actually agreed to that.
No, and here's where things get dark. J.F. Rutherford wasn't he was a pacifist and he was anti-war, but he hated the Catholics. So J.F. Rutherford on all his magazines every month, he would bash the Catholics. So the Catholics got tired of him, and the Catholics told Hitler to ban Jehovah's Witness operations in Germany, and Hitler did it.
Yeah, because
So
he was part of the Catholic Church.
Exactly. So Hitler banned the Jehovah's Witnesses from operating in Germany. Rutherford, he gets mad, and he's like, hey, we're agreeing to all your Nazi stuff. So then he says, you know what? Okay, let's take it full scale. And then I think in what's the date here? I don't have the date here, man, but I think it's 1934. It's when he publishes a second piece, and this is actually the one that the witnesses cannot get rid of today. It's in some of their literature, and they don't like this.
Right.
It's called a Declaration of Facts, where the witnesses go full on anti-Semitic and talk about how the Jewish man has always tried to control government, and how the Jewish man should not be allowed, power, because they're the ones who turn on Jesus, and they go full anti-Semitic, and again in an attempt to get Hitler to leave them alone.
Okay.
Hitler at this point says, no, I'm not going to do anything. I don't like you guys. So then J.F. Rutherford flip-flops, and he starts threatening Hitler in his magazines. And he starts telling Hitler, if you don't, let us preach, God will have his fury on you and your party. And at this point, J.F. Rutherford is losing his mind. And if you go to the literature, the Jehovah's Witness literature, everything on J.F. Rutherford is blank from 1934 till 1940, and I think he died in 41. So those last like 7 years of J.F. Rutherford's life, he went bananas, and he lost all what he worked for.
Right.
And after that, that was like, those were the Russell and then J.F. Rutherford were the first two people who really shaped the witnesses and the way that it went. And then after that, they sort of stuck to their story about how the governing body is, and having a board pretty much is the right way to run a religion.
Right.
But that's how
Instead of
it
just
started,
making it one guy at the top, they decided to have a board
Exactly.
of people at the top.
Yeah.
I think the
They sort
Seventh
of
Day Adventists
saw,
are also like that as well.
yeah, they learned their lesson from seeing J.F. Rutherford, and how they saw how one person at the top isn't really the way to go. And they didn't want the next person to have the same political problems that Jay Rutherford had, where one year you're literally preaching anti-Semitic stuff, and then the next year you're threatening Hitler because you're mad that he didn't take your side. So
Yeah.
that's how the Jehovah's Witnesses started. That like I didn't know. Yeah.
Well, so I was going to point out here that one of the key aspects of a cult, one of the things that you'll notice in all cults, is they put one guy between the rest of everybody and God.
Right.
So yeah, in this case, it was Rutherford. He became the spokesperson for God on Earth, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So that's where we get like people like the Mormons and stuff like that who put Joseph Smith between everybody else and God. Those are cults. Those are not religions. Those are classified as
Those are
cults.
yeah.
That's one aspect that they use. Another aspect they use is something that I think the Jehovah's Witnesses do is called shunning. So if you are part of the cult at one point and you start to wise up on their tactics, you get what's called shun, where you lose everything: your social contacts, your family. Everybody can't talk to you, and you're basically put out on your own.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah. This wasn't implemented until later. I think this was until the 50s. At first, the witnesses actually, uh, in some of their older magazines, they actually sent out a couple of articles where they talked about how shunning was a pagan practice and it's evil.
Mm-hmm.
That you should not excommunicate. That they have messages out that you should not excommunicate people in the
Right.
40s, and then in the 50s they turned around and then they brought in the rule, and then they never have called it excommunicating. They called it disfellowshipping. That's
Okay.
the term. It's the same thing.
Synonymous. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't mean it's the same thing, but they are really I guess picky about that word. They call it disfellowshipped.
Right.
In their minds, shunning and excommunicated have like a negative connotation,
Yeah.
and disfellowshipping has a positive connotation because you're doing it for Jehovah.
I think they understand that shunning is a cult practice, and they try to avoid things that make them look culty, even though if you were an ex Jehovah's Witness, you can see right through that veil, like yourself.
Yeah, it's um I call it the boyfriend principle. Every time a guy starts dating a girl and he wants to be the next boyfriend, the first thing he says is, "I'm not like the others."
Oh, of course.
It's
Yeah.
I'm not like everyone else. Right. It's the first thing you do is you just cover your tracks because you
Yeah.
know that you're gonna fuck up at some point.
Sure.
And right, and that's it's almost the same principle. These what these cults end up doing is they start bashing other cults. They start bashing other religions, and then they set the boundaries. The boundaries. It's only me, only
Yeah.
for me.
What they do is they want to take the view off of themselves and point it to somebody else and say, those guys are all fucked up over there. Look at them.
Exactly.
Look at
Right.
them. In the meanwhile, they're hiding all of their fucked up characteristics.
Right. And this is disfellowshipping. It's disfellowshipping is I think the most uh, uh, emotionally charged part of this whole Jehovah's Witness thing because
Mm.
it's I think I kind of want to like hold on to it first. I kind of want to get into why the witnesses are the main thing that holds them, because I think the main thing that makes Jehovah's Witnesses and like what gives Jehovah's Witnesses their conviction is their faith, and it is the fact that they, unlike other cults, or I don't want to say unlike other cults, but they have a very good understanding of the Bible.
Mhm.
Like just the on a objective scale. If I was to grab 10 people from each religion and test those 10 people on how well they know their own religion, I think that the witnesses would probably score pretty highly on knowing their own religion. Whereas I think lots of Catholics, don't even know the first thing about Mass. They wouldn't know how to carry on like a ritual or like a meeting the same way that a witness who's always knows how to run meetings pretty much.
Okay.
Like the witnesses have their belief, and they have their belief is pretty much centered around death.
All
they
right.
they they without a doubt think that when they die, they have their faith. They think that their belief is you can't move them. And when you have something, when you have a faith that strong, when you have a conviction that strong, that's when you can actually begin to see shunning for what it really is. Because uh, uh, I think that most people, most sane people wouldn't shun their kids, but then you start thinking about it. It's like, okay, well, no matter what, I don't want to see my kid on heroin. So if my kid gets on heroin, something really bad, then if they go down that lane, I'm gonna have a say about it. Hey, you're not my son if you go down this lane. Get your act together. So
It's sort of like an implicit bias where even facts, you will find a reason to argue against it internally. You will
right,
find a side view that says, "Oh, I'm okay doing this because of something else," just to verify your own belief.
Cognitive
exactly.
dissonance.
Cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you and right, and this is this starts to become really obvious. This is just bias, and this is the way that you structure your worldviews, and it becomes it becomes really obvious, when you look at what witnesses like let go and what they attack and what they tolerate, again from their own kids, like a lot of witnesses that I've met now, this is always the same. They always have the same critique. It always goes along this line. When witnesses try to convince you to join, they are so quick to critique other religions,
Right.
but they do not have that same nuance for critique about them. At the first, you can't even begin to slightly criticize a Jehovah's Witness belief without them shutting it down, right? But they want to spend all their time, like making, trying to bash Hinduism, trying to bash atheism,
Yeah.
like when these other points of views have, very convincing arguments. So
Yeah.
that bias,
Just like advertising. When you have a competitor in your field, you go,
exactly,
don't go to those other guys. They
right?
make a horrible product. Come get our product.
Yeah, but they say that your price is too high. Oh, it sounds like something they would say. It's at the end of this is what Rutherford brought in. Rutherford helped the witnesses become salesmen, and
Yeah.
he sort of gave, because at the end of the day, this is what you're doing, man. Like I don't mean to be cynical about religion, because I do think that there is a space for religion, but I do mean to be cynical about strategy and about cults and about, the brainwashing. And this is what it is. You selling is important, because being a salesman is something that you can bring in any field.
Mhm.
If you start an academic career, you
Right.
realize that by who you are, you can sell people to your lifestyle. If you start doing jujitsu, you realize that people like what you're doing, and if people like what you're doing, they're going to start training like you. And that's why people, get sponsors, because they know that like have a like you can move, the culture. People listen to you.
Right.
So in
You're an
that same manner,
influencer,
it's like,
basically.
okay,
Yeah.
right. So if I know that my follower is a real, if I have a really good follower, I know that his friends are going to want to come see what he's doing, right? So I want my guy to be the best salesman out there. And Rutherford brought in a lot of techniques about preaching, and this is
Mhm.
where the witnesses started getting the reputation for preaching. Preaching starts to become really big in the 30s and in the 40s, with like the gramophone. People used to like sit outside with this speaker playing, with this recording, this vinyl, and they would just play it, and they would just sit there and have the Bible speech just playing, and people would come and they'd give them magazines and their tracks. And then this kept evolving into just regular preaching, just down the street. Once the war settled down, once the witnesses started getting a foothold in America, and once everything started slowing down a bit, then regular preaching started rearing its head, and all these witnesses started converting. um I think that preaching is probably it's where the jokes come from. Everyone knows witnesses as like people who come to your door and they won't leave you alone. And
Right.
I think that like that's pretty much what witnesses are known the most for. And um
Well, there's
I
other things as well, like they won't take blood
yeah,
transfusions. They're not allowed to have medicine. I think in
no,
in the in the 70s and 80s when I was a kid, we used to laugh because little Jehovah's Witnesses kids would wear helmets when they rode bicycles, and now it's commonplace. But back in those days, we're like,
Right.
"What are
Yeah.
you doing, man?" We didn't understand. Like, it's because they can't have blood transfusions, and if they knock themselves in the head, they'll just die. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the, all those rules, they're weird because they're sort of like mentioned in the Bible. You know, like in the Bible it says that you're not supposed to take in blood from any creature, or whatever. You know,
It's an
and
interpretation.
it's, I'm sorry.
It's an interpretation that they came to. That's the
Right. Yeah.
conclusion they came to. Other people would come to a
And
different conclusion.
and the witnesses sort of like so they're pretty strict on it, but and again, like, this is the part that gets really nasty, because even if they'll claim that, oh, it's up to the the believers, it's up to the individuals themselves to decide whether you want to have a blood transfusion or not. What This is what they'll tell you. So um it's not straight up banned as a witness. They don't tell you you can't get one.
Hmm.
What they tell you is you can't get a straight up blood. If you want to get parts of blood, like if you want to get plasma is, it's allowed. And then this is their rhetoric. It's up to your conscience. But if you if to not help, to not make other brothers stumble, you should also take that into account.
Mhm.
Because it's not just about you. If your brother looks at you and says, "Hey, he took blood," but then you're now a stumbling block for your brothers.
Right.
So this sort of attitude gets brought in everywhere. It's like, okay, no sex before marriage. Okay, well, what does this mean? It means no sex before marriage. Does this mean you can kiss your girlfriend before marriage?
Yeah.
Maybe, but we don't want to get too physical because we could be a stumbling block for, and then this argument gets, again, it gets tossed for everything,
Right.
for swear words, for smoking, for all the things that are banned as Jehovah's Witnesses.
It's interesting you brought up that because like smoking wasn't even a thing back when the Bible was written, was it?
No, it's
Not in that
smoking's
area of
new.
the world, at least.
Yeah, smoking is new. Smoking is really new. And
Smoking is later on in when the people came to the New World and they brought back tobacco
yeah,
to England and to Portugal and stuff like that. Then smoking became real. But the people like the Jehovah's Witnesses use that space to have that distance, and they go, "Oh, smoking's bad." Well, we know it's bad now, but they wouldn't have even known what it was back then. I
yeah.
remember as my parents were Seventh-day Adventists, and they used to say, "Oh, you can't watch TV on Friday after sundown until the Saturday sundown because that's the holy day. That's the Sabbath, right?"
Yeah, the
Like,
Sabbath.
when the Bible was written, they didn't know what a fucking TV was. Get off my back! I want to watch Knight Rider, man.
Yeah.
Right. They didn't have they didn't have running lights back then.
They didn't have
If they
electronics at
did,
all.
they would have kept the lights on all fucking weekend. They would not have.
Yeah.
They're not gonna stop because God said one day.
It's
No,
funny because when Jehovah's Witnesses come up to me all the time and they're like, "Oh, Jesus is coming back," and I'm like, I said, "Well, if he comes back, I'm gonna scare the shit out of him with my iPhone."
right. Hey, man.
They're in all those religions as well. There's always a technicality or a loophole. Like you mentioned, the Sabbath. They've got certain elevator buttons that they can push and other buttons that they can't.
Right.
They always find these technicalities, like you say, with the blood. Like it can't be straight blood if it's like broken down blood. Well, they didn't know anything like that back in the day when
They
the
had
book
no
was
idea.
written.
Yeah.
So these technicalities are all recent creations,
Right.
in order to navigate our more knowledgeable world, like in order to get through life, and also not to alienate potential or current members. Like if they can't interpret something into the modern world, then the modern world people will have to second guess. They'll have to make up their own inferences of the interpretation, and then that doesn't work for them because they're no longer in control.
How dopey is their God that you can just put up all these tricks, right? Like
Yeah.
there used to be this thing, like I think in the Jewish faith, where you couldn't work or you couldn't go outside on a Sabbath or whatever. So what they did is they think up things like, in order for me not to do work, I have a machine that does this thing that that way God can't blame me, or I can't go outside. So what they do is they put a giant string around like a certain area, so technically you're not outside anymore, even though you're outside, you're inside the string. So it just makes me think like your supreme being is kind of an asshole, and he's easy to trick. Yeah.
Or they have a goyim who is a person that's not Jewish, to do the things for them that they can't do.
Exactly. Yeah. You
It's
don't
like,
have,
oh,
right, you don't
God's
have,
fooled.
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. These, all these little technicalities, all these little like beliefs. So, uh, um, this is the part that started scaring me when okay, we're almost there,
Okay,
and then
go
I'll
ahead. I'm
rope
sorry to
in how.
interrupt you. Yeah.
No, yeah, yeah, we're almost finished with the recap, and then like I'll start explaining how I tie into all of this.
Okay.
So um, the witnesses have a couple of more false, doomsday, doomsdays, and uh, they bring all these rules meant to refine, and it's what they really want to do is just this is almost like the archetype of the good boy, the teacher's pet. How do I stand out? You
Right.
know, and this is like when you start thinking about people and what religion really is and how religion has acted, and just when you think about just belief in God, it's like, okay, if if I believe in God and God is with me, then how will other people know that? Well, obviously by how well my life goes, and so people get stuck and fixated on this idea of your life as a reflection of God's blessings on you. And this is just that simple understanding is how everything, starts to like expand. Once you think that you're better, once you think that God is with you because things turned out different for you, you're going to start seeking out all these different new things to do to stand out, and just this happens everywhere in companies. People work more, and with relationships with friends, like anything you do, people will want to do more. This is just something natural. People get obsessed with one thing, and then they want to get to the end of it. So if I grew up a Jehovah's Witness and I want to be a Jehovah's Witness, there's lots of ways for me to stand out in it that I'm never going to get tired of it because I can always be a better Jehovah's Witness. It's like a never-ending goal. It's like an always shifting goal. So no matter where in history you look at someone at a cult or you look at a religion, every cult is in the process of growing and refining its belief. So every cult is always finding new ways to, hey, let's stop being shitheads. How
Mm.
can we stop being a shithead this year? Well, it's the same mentality a company has with profits. You're like, well, where can we, get profits this? Well, we got to cut down on this. We got to cut down on that. It's that same growth mentality. And the witnesses were able to capture that. And then, they went full on with their preaching. And uh, I think that for the most part, a lot of Americans, I think like you, ended up not really paying too much attention to the religious thing, especially in these last like 30 years.
Hmm.
You know, I think that maybe a lot of like the older boomers are pretty religious, and then you sort of have like these 70s and 80s kids that came out rebellious.
Right.
And then there was, you get a lot of new age in the 70s and in the 80s. You start getting rock music starts changing the scene. Then 90s, 2000s, and then pretty much now you have, pretty much we're caught up where we're at now. The witnesses are relatively a new religion.
Right.
There are a lot of older cults, but they're not that old. It's barely only 90 years, I think. But as a group, maybe a little bit over 110. So they don't have a huge momentum, but the momentum that they were able to gain has been, I think, incredible. Um,
Hmm.
one of the things that the witnesses were not prepared for is the internet. The
Right.
internet changed everything. It changed
In
so
all
much.
aspects of life. Yeah.
Yeah, and it just
Every
right,
aspect.
not right. Everything changed, but the witnesses they really did not expect for the internet to come around, and all of a sudden, so this is sort of like, I guess, where I start coming in. I was born in 1992, and I was 4 years old, so I think it was 96 when I started going to meetings, and my mom, she started going. The reason my parents started going is because
The reason we're laughing is that I got kids your age, man.
Yeah.
oh yeah. so
And I remember the 90s a lot more than
I
you
have a
do,
son who was
probably.
born in
yeah, oh yeah.
'95. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, no, I know, man. That's never gonna get old. I always tell people was born in '92, and they just roll their eyes. They're like, "Oh, what the fuck do you know?" so
I've smoked.
It
I
will when
smoked
you're the
more-
old one rolling your
Yeah.
eyes.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, 1990 used to mean you were 20 years old 10 years ago. Now you're 30. So it's starting to pile up,
I wish I was 30.
Uh, so so the reason my parents started becoming started associating with witnesses is because they were immigrants. My parents came here to Texas, from Mexico, and they didn't have a lot of family here. So my mom had two kids, me and my sister, and the witnesses they would pretty much just bug her. My mom was at home doing nothing. The witnesses would come preach. They would come, they'd talk to her, and then like they'd hang out with us. They'd have their own kids, and the now that I'm getting older and I look back at it, I really do think that the reason that my parents joined was because this wave of immigration needed like a glue to help the community stick together. And a lot of these immigrants that were, it's so hard to get up to speed with American culture when when you're an immigrant and you don't really have a handle on the language. Like uh, when you come in and you don't speak the same language, you tend to stay with your own, you tend to stay with people who speak your own language. You tend
Sure,
to
has the same culture.
segregate into,
Yeah.
yeah, right. You have Chinatowns, you have Mexican towns everywhere. It's just what happens. And
We live in Japan, so I see that happening here. It's just another country, and it happens that all Americans stick with all Americans, and sometimes all
exactly
Canadians
right.
stick with all Canadians. And then
Yeah,
if you have a common language, like we speak English, then automatically, hey, we got something in common, so you become friends.
right.
Well,
And
and cults have always gone after the vulnerable,
Correct.
the more vulnerable in society.
Yep.
Even
So-
here in
so-
Japan, that's the case. Like when they had the
Mhm.
Om Shinrikyo cult, they were trying to find housewives who are interested in yoga, and they were like, why don't you come down to our yoga studio? And they come down to the yoga studio, and this is pretty neat. No, it's free too. You can stretch a little bit here. Why don't you read this book? Or why don't you watch this video? And then that's how it started. And then they got
that's how it starts. Yeah.
they got sucked in. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, that's beautiful. It's I think that's where it starts getting ugly because if I really believe in God, if I really believe in God and I want to tell other people about it, I think that there's something really pure about that. Like in a very in a real awakening sense, and like Alan Watts, if you really have that moment of satori and awakening, and you really want to help others and talk to other people about it, I get the motive. You want to inspire others, but you know how many times how removed is getting a new cult member from that original wanting to share that feeling of awe, right? And this is where I think that it starts becoming sinister because this is where the trick is done.
Mhm.
uh you, you can't awaken, you can't have that moment of bliss unless you believe what I believe. And then it starts getting a little bit more sinister than that. You aren't allowed to have that bliss unless God forgives you. And God isn't going to forgive you unless you repent. And this is where the idea of confession comes in. And confession, is probably one of like the worst like parts of manipulation that different, and not even cults, a lot of religions have the idea of confession built into it. Yep.
Yeah. So good point that you make there. So religions create something, they call it sin. It's a
Right.
disease, and they sell the cure, which only they have.
Exactly.
Right. So
Mhm.
if you think about it, sin doesn't even really exist. It's a made up
it's all in your
concept.
mind.
It's all in your mind.
Right. It's all
And
in your mind.
what's a sin to a Jehovah's Witness might not be a sin to a Catholic, which might not be a sin to a Baptist, which might not be a sin to a Mormon. But if you look at what the Bible says, it says like stuff like if you eat shrimps, or if you
Right.
eat kind of
Shellfish.
shellfish, that's a sin. But there are cultures on this whole, there are people on this planet who primarily live on seafood. I live in a country like that,
Right.
so that's an island. We live on an island, so people on
Right.
islands primarily eat seafood. So the
And
idea of a sin, I was going to point, the idea of a sin is a made up concept. And if someone tells me, oh, you're sinning, I don't agree with that, because I don't agree that there is such a thing as sin.
right. Well,
Yeah.
the way that I liken it to is like it's just habit. So if if I'm okay, let's just as an example, if I'm an islander and we
Mhm.
have a certain way of eating oysters in my island, that's the way we're gonna do it.
Yep.
And if I have kids, that's the way I'm gonna teach them. And
Yeah.
then 3 generations, maybe my kids will move somewhere else, and then someone's gonna ask them, why do you open it like that? What's the way it's always been done? You know, and
Yeah.
that's what sin is. Sin is good advice that remained in place for so long that it became law.
Right.
And it would be, like you don't have to follow advice, so then why do you have to follow law? Well, it's because it's, this is where the idea uh, uh, of the state, and of like punishment, and and
Yeah.
of law being an actual, like something that you can't escape.
Well,
S-
also
it's tricky because,
I want to point
yeah.
out that the Bible never the Bible never came up with anything original, like in regards to sin, right? Like it says, "Thou shalt not kill." Yeah, no shit. If you want to live in a society, you can't be going around killing other people in your society. That's just kind of a common sense. That's not something like it's not like somebody told them that and they're like, "Oh, now I get it. Thou shalt not
Right.
steal." You don't want your shit stolen, so you don't steal other people's shit. That's just kind of a normal human thing. It's not like a thing that they came up with that's
A
a
basic
revolution.
morality, that that
It's
most anyone
basically
can believe. Yeah.
you don't
Right.
want it done to you, so you don't do it to other people.
Right. So like, I think this is where it also gets a little tricky, because like a lot of murder is condoned in the Bible per se. It's just
Oh
It
yeah.
is.
it's just
Yeah.
right. It's just now when it's to us. We can kill all these other, we can
Genocide is
murder
condoned in the
all these
Bible.
other people. We
Yeah.
can take their land. We can, take their women. It's
Make them slaves.
they would specifically kill men and take their women.
Yeah.
Like, think
No,
about
they
that
take
shit.
women. They
They
would
like,
take
right,
female children.
right. So they I think, so. At the beginning of the Bible, you do have the idea of a mistake, and the idea of the mistake is, like, this is the beginning of the mystery, and there are, I think, some aspects to this as a mystery, because we really don't know where the story started from. We get some hints of, like, Adam and Eve, and what's it called, and Eve
Which is
sinning,
sorry to
and
me. To
and,
me, as an
and
atheist, that's stupid. The whole idea of Adam and Eve is stupid.
right, but I
Yeah.
mean metaphorically, like, even there's
Even
only a certain,
as a kid. So when I heard the story,
right,
I heard the story of Adam and Eve, and then like God said, "Oh, here's a tree. Don't eat from this tree." Why did you
right,
put it right the fuck there?
exactly,
Why did you put
right.
it there?
What are all these rules? Yeah,
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense.
and then if you say it's the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, then if they eat it, they didn't have the knowledge of good and evil before they ate it, so they didn't know they were doing anything wrong, and now you want to torture them.
Right. So this is the witnesses. So I think this is actually kind of important to, like, just in terms of Christianity, to sort of, explain. The,
Mhm.
the witnesses have a very distinct version of their origin. The
Okay.
witnesses think that uh, uh, the witnesses go as far as to grant that evolution is real. So there are a couple of articles where the witnesses will say, okay, uh, uh, if you can trace back life all the way down to a single cell, that's fine. But at the end of the day, no one can explain how that first single cell became animate. And
Yeah, that
that's the witnesses' version of giving science, as much rope as it can give it.
right.
The
But
witnesses,
as a
however,
person
though,
who understands that what science, I also understand that base chemicals and protons and those kind of things have probably always existed.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think most Christians
Hmm.
wouldn't do. My point is that most Christians wouldn't grant science even that. Most Christians
Oh, I see.
will flat out deny evolution and say, "Oh, adaptation is real, evolution is bullshit. Species don't evolve into other species. There's only certain species, and there's adaptation within those species." The witnesses, I think that if you sat down with the witness, they would deny evolution, but there are certain articles where you could actually, go in and loophole and show them how their own doctrine has allowed for evolution to be real if evolution can be proven true.
Right.
But most witnesses aren't gonna, go and argue that, because that's not what they're concerned about. A witness will tell you, "Well, okay, well, it doesn't even matter how it started. What matters is that we are obedient to Jehovah now," and that's what they'll focus on. So
Mhm.
it's like, okay, who cares how it started? So when you're trying to, like, debate with them, uh, uh, how it started, and the merit, like when you're actually trying to piece, okay, but we're apes, we have 94% DNA that's matching with chimps right now. How is this possible if God created us on the seventh day? It's like, no, 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 no. Like, we're not going to even argue with that. It doesn't matter. That's a huge lie as far as we're concerned. All that matters is that we're alive now, and that we know that, okay, so this is the next part of the witnesses belief. The witnesses don't necessarily believe in a heaven or a hell. The witnesses sort of believe that man, Adam and Eve were perfect, and they had this perfect life where they weren't going to die. And then Eve bit from the tree, and that's how death came into the world. So the witnesses really think that death wasn't something real for humans, at least. They don't understand how death was something real for humans, and then they say that, well, once they ate, that's when they started dying, and then their kids. So they say that Adam was the firstborn, and Adam was going to live forever until Eve bit, and then Eve made Adam bite, and then they both bit, and now they're both dead, and because they both died, all their kids now inherit death, and this is
Yeah.
where the idea of the wage that sin pays is death,
Mhm.
where by sinning, you earn death, and the only reason that you die is because you sin, and it's this feedback loop where you sin and you will die because you sin, and you can't help it because this thing, like the witnesses, the way they put it is, we've been molded using the same mold that Adam was created with, so we all have that imperfection, and the witnesses are big on that. The witnesses say that we're all imperfect, and that when someday in paradise we will be perfect, but not today. Today we're all imperfect, and we're always falling short of that perfection. So uh, um, I don't, in terms of Christianity, in terms of it's so hard to admit when sin came in, because sin really is just a concept. But then I think, I like, in terms of, if in terms of the bigger picture, I think that the Adam and Eve story is actually a story about humanity learning about its own mortality, and that I think that there was a time where man realized that we die, and that before then we didn't know that we were going to die, and then at some point we saw our brothers dying. Who knows if this was 100,000 years ago or 200,000 years ago. At some point, death became something real. The concept of death became real in our minds as humans, and I think that this fear of it is sort of like what traumatized us as a like collective species, and we've been grappling with the idea of mortality and what comes after, and this is what gives witnesses their power. If you really thought that you were going to see if your kid died, and you honestly thought that you were going to see your kids again after, I think that that power is real and tangible, and I think that that's going to make you, like, live your life differently. And like, again, like that power, when you can sort of harness it
Mhm.
and use it in your ideology. So now you have people working for you. Like that fear is no longer restraining them. No, again, like there's a difference, man. There's a difference when you meet a witness and they're starting to believe. It's almost like that Neo in the Matrix thing. They don't believe in Jehovah yet, but they're starting. They see the love. They see all the other witnesses. They see you out preaching. They're like, oh, we're onto something. Like, and then uh, uh you flash all the positives about being a witness, which is like one of the positives about being a witness is that you literally have a worldwide brotherhood. Like, I
Mhm.
could, if I was a witness, I could go to any country any day, and I could find I could run to a kingdom hall, and witnesses there would receive me, because they
Mm.
would be like, oh, well, you're a witness, you're like, of course we're going to take you in.
Yeah, it
so
started with the
so
Templars.
right, so you start learning, and you're like, oh yeah, well, there's something to it, like, there's all these other people, there's 8 million of us, you can go to any country in the world, like you start seeing all these things, and it gets really easy to just let go. And now again, the fear is now on the other side. The fear isn't holding you back. The fear is giving you the reason to wake up. I want to wake up and go preach because of this amazing thing, you know?
Yeah, I think a lot of that. I think we evolved from trying to stay alive and a constant uh, attempt to try and stay alive in nature. Most animals, I don't think animals think about death. I think animals
No,
just think about staying alive,
Mostly
and it's
food.
only, yeah, like food. So we only made the concept of death after we had the ability to think about it. Like it's a construct of our own minds to
exactly.
think about what happens after, because
Right.
before we were smart enough to think about it, all we concerned ourselves with was survival.
Yeah,
Like
don't let that happen to
we
you.
we never had a thought about
Don't
death.
let that bad thing happen to you. Okay, it didn't
Right.
happen to you. Okay, you're good. You're good. You're fine.
Yeah.
You know, and then
And then the other side of it is, uh, earlier on, I think, as animals even, we probably realized that there is strength in numbers.
Yeah,
So
tribes.
tribes and communities, and so we developed into a being that is very social,
Pack animals,
and
basically.
pack animals. And so as we evolved, we became this social creature. So as you say, you can go anywhere and find someone that you are a member of. You can have
right,
your group everywhere you go. Well, of course, to a social being, that's very desirable and very attractive. And
right.
it's another thing that brings you into that community, because you want to be part of a group. You want to
Right.
have that safety of a group.
Here's where I don't want to say coddling, but here's where I do want to talk about sanity and like you mentioned earlier, vulnerable people, because I think that a lot of it, I don't even want to say it like this, but I'll say it and then I'll correct it. But I think I want the thing that I want to say is, if you're sane, I think that you're not going to get obsessed over a topic the same way that Jehovah's Witnesses are. If you're completely sane and if you're, going along with your life, your family, everything's fine, you're not going to get enamored with one thing and obsessed over one thing, and have that thing take over your entire life. With the witnesses, that happens. And I think that there's something to be said about that, where that thing consumes you, and again, that obsession kicks in, and you push everything aside, and all your social cues are now defined through your obsession. So and here's where I would I'll be careful, but at the same time, I'd like to even start drawing some analogies to, like, even jujitsu, because, like, I've not that jujitsu is bad in jujitsu, but, like,
But
I've
very
seen
culty.
I've seen very cult like, right. I've
Oh
seen
yeah.
Yeah.
cult like tendencies in a lot
Oh,
of
so have
jujitsu
I.
teams,
Yeah, so have I,
right?
man.
And it's so in terms of psychology, I think that, like, I think that it's easy to let something that you love run your life, and just in terms of us being social creatures, the way that we relate to things. If I go through a phase where I remember the first time that it hit me. I was training in Austin with some of my Tim Planet friends,
Yeah.
and we went out to dinner with some new friends, and several of our jiu-jitsu friends would not shut the fuck up about jiu-jitsu.
Oh,
Just
that
say, hey,
happens all
you
the
got to
time.
come
White
down and
belts are
you got
like
to
that.
come down and train with us. Yeah, you got to come down and train. And
Fucking
he's like,
white
oh
belts
yeah,
and
I've
blue
done some
belts are like
boxing.
that. Yeah.
Right. And then the friend would be like, oh yeah, I've done some boxing. And then the jiu-jitsu would be like, no, you don't understand. This
Yeah.
is different. Boxing isn't
Boxing,
like, and
yeah,
and
boxing
then
can't handle jujitsu.
exactly.
Well,
And then
every martial art has been almost that
right.
religious sect type of
Yeah,
mentality. Like in
that's a
the
whole other
earlier
thing.
days, you had the kung fu guys,
They're still
Right.
like that, those fuckers.
and they always
Well,
thought kung fu was the best.
Magical
Kung
kung
fu
fu
and
in the
karate.
70s. Yeah.
Yeah.
When I left Jehovah's when I got out of Jehovah's Witness, so I'm 28 years old now. I got disfellowshipped when I was 22. I want to say 22 or 23. So I've been out for about 5-6 years now.
Mhm.
Um, I started training jujitsu while I was still a Jehovah's Witness, and I would go to tournaments. I would go to Naga and I would, like, compete. And I remember I had some friends come with me to one of my tournaments, and the that was on a Saturday. The Sunday after, those friends of mine got in trouble for coming to me for coming with me to a jiu-jitsu event. And then next time I went to a meeting,
Mhm.
my elders talked to me, and they told me that Christians shouldn't be engaging in in martial combats or in violent acts.
Well,
And it's like
the whole
I
King
sat down
David
like
story comes to mind there, doesn't it?
I stopped it. Yeah, I stopped and I was like, okay, well, no. You guys understand what jiu-jitsu is. Like, we're not hurting each other. We're practicing so that we understand it. I told them the whole rap, and they're like, no, we can't have it. Like, so I got at the beginning, they started by taking privileges away.
What do you
So
mean by privileges?
okay, so we've talked about the history and we've talked about shunning, but we haven't talked about the hierarchy of the witnesses yet. So the witnesses have a very special, like they're pretty much a business. They're a business and they're salesmen. Like I don't mean to be harsh, but like that's the way to think about it. Each congregation is like a dojo in a way. It's each congregation is each community, and each elder are like the black belts and the brown belts of that school. And if it's really similar to that, if in jiu-jitsu terms, uh, elders run a congregation, and then underneath the elders they have ministerial servants who help them by being their errand boys. And then underneath that you have all the baptized people, like all the baptized members of the Jehovah's Witnesses. And then underneath that you have the unbaptized publishers, who pretty much everyone who preaches.
Right.
So uh, uh, the way to think about it is, if you wanted to become a Jehovah's Witness, you couldn't just join overnight. You would have to, like, it would take about a year for you to join.
Hmm.
And you would start first by learning about it, white belt, blue belt, and then you get your purple belt is pretty much when you get baptized. We don't
Right.
let you get baptized until the witnesses are sure that you can handle yourself.
Right.
So the ministerial servants and the elders pretty much handle all the interior matters in the congregation. The elders give talks. The elders, they run the show, and they bring people in and give advice to them. So if Robert, you, Jeremy, and me, if we were the three elders in a congregation, pretty much we would be tossing responsibility between the three of us. One of us would be secretary, the other one would help with the speeches. All the speeches come down from the governing body, but
Hmm.
still we would take turns giving speeches, at the meetings. And between the three of us, we would then find like maybe four other young men in the congregation, who are rising up, and we'd let them in on the power game, and we'd let them in on helping run the show so that we could get a hand.
Well, it's
And
like a
that's
next
how you
generation kind of thing, right?
exactly, and that's how you started indoctrinating the next generation.
Yeah.
It's ideal,
So to give yourself more power, you put people under you, so you're pushing yourself up further.
right? It's like what are those those
Pyramid scheme.
It's like a pyramid scheme. It's like Amway.
yeah, it's like a pyramid scheme. You're recruiting,
Hmm.
and the more you recruit, the more weight you have, because obviously if you recruit more, you've got something special.
Yeah.
And if just like again, I want to almost tie it back to jiu-jitsu. If that person at the gym whose friends come, who
Hmm.
just they start coming, you know
Yeah.
and then that's how it is. That's that person's going to start bringing in more people, and
Well,
that's
it
how.
also works on authority and power, because if you want to step away from the jujitsu references, you could say it's like a club. Well, first you want to get in the club, and then you want
Right.
to get into the back section, and then you want to get into the VIP section, and then you want to get into the VIP section.
Right. So this is what privilege means. You
Yeah.
start racking up privileges. Well, privilege means it's not the it's just responsibilities. For example, a privilege would be we need someone to run the mics down, for the comments
Oh.
during the question and answer. So those are very, yeah. Go ahead. Right. So things have to get done in the congregation. There are a lot of power games, and I had to learn a lot of power games. I don't think I ever abused my power, and while I had it, I didn't have it for very long. But like for example, when you go preaching, you don't meet as a whole congregation. You break off into like four different subgroups within the congregation, and then some people will meet at a brother's house, some will meet at the hall, 20 people will meet at another house. Out of those 20 people, like a brother has to guide that meeting. So if I'm guiding the meeting, we meet at 9. From 9 to 9:15, we go over a couple of Bible verses, a couple of tips to things we can do today when we meet homeowners out in field service. I go through 15 minutes of that. Then the other 15 minutes are to arrange partners and divide those partners among the territory. Witnesses have a map of their town, wherever the witnesses are. They have a map of the district that they're supposed to preach. Each congregation has a certain amount of land that they're supposed to cover, and it's their responsibility to cover it.
Mhm.
And different publishers can take out different neighborhoods within that territory and work that neighborhood over. And that's the idea. If I'm a publisher, I want to get to know my neighborhood and work that neighborhood and get to know everyone in that neighborhood, and get pretty much witness witnesses carry out a census. They have to go out and talk to the homeowners. You have to report everything. There's yeah, yep.
Oh, so they really do know if you're an atheist. They know, okay, an atheist lives here.
Yes, we know. Yeah,
Oh
we know.
shit! I thought that was
So
just a
so
rumor. Okay.
no, no, no. We have we have they have a record of everything. So the way that it would work is we have a record. So I rent out territory number 32.
Hmm.
Blah blah blah, whatever. Territory number 32. I already have all the other notes from it that come with it. So I know that certain streets have more Spanish speaking people. I know certain streets have more English speaking people.
Right.
So I know how it's looking like. Depending on what's there to do, I take that and I give that as work to the brothers and the sisters.
Right.
So I say, okay, when you get to Main Street, uh, uh, take every house on that street because we need to like we haven't counted in a while, so we need to make sure that who is there. So they'll go and they'll do every house that street. And like if they see a license plate, if they see like kids toys outside, if they see little
Right.
things, they'll note it down and they're like, oh, they have kids. I see a like sometimes they'll have like a family, Smith family,
Right.
obviously English. So it's like, okay, write that down, we don't have to waste time and come here again. So witnesses go out to all the neighborhoods literally and walk the territory and figure out who lives where to help with efficiency in preaching later. So
Hmm.
the work, this is like there's actual work. This
Get
gets
it? I
spread
mean,
out.
we have these dudes sitting up at our train stations. We have train stations all over Japan, and they're sitting up there. They have like an A-frame, and it's got all their little pictures and stuff on it. And they're trying to talk to you, and if they see another English speaker, they really want to talk to you. Yeah.
Yeah, they it's just it's fascinating. Honestly, this is one of the most, it really is just fascinating to me. It's fascinating to me how their conviction, how much they want it, like they really believe it. And uh, uh they take all these privileges, they take it seriously. Like I didn't know what being stoic meant. I didn't get
Okay.
into Marcus Aurelius until I was way older. But being a witness, I knew what it meant. Like, because it's the thing that you see. It's like the when you grow up in meetings, the way that young men carry out their privileges, the way that young men comment, everything is stoic. Everything is,
Mm-hmm.
cut to the bullshit. Oh, it's this, it's that. We don't want to teeter on this. Like no one's second guessing beliefs, and
Okay.
that really adds to that whole attitude. So um, there's privileges and the responsibilities, and there's ranks. There's like different ranks. The your elder, that's when you're at the top. Ministerial servant is when you're pretty much a handyman. You're giving talks, but you're helping with the errands. And then you have what you call your pioneers. Your pioneers are your Jehovah's Witnesses who put in 70 hours of preaching a month.
Okay.
Every month they log in 70 hours of field service, whether it's return visits, Bible studies, or just door-to-door field service. Like that's what I was a regular pioneer for 2 years before I ended up leaving. So my timeline is I got baptized when I was 15, and then 2011 I became a regular pioneer. and I did it for 2 years, and then they took away my pioneering, and then they took away
Why?
my why. Oh, this is a long story. This is hilarious. I'll try here. Let me try shorten it up.
Try to
Okay.
make it short.
Yeah, yeah. I had an I was 18 when I was a pioneer, and I was really loved in my hall.
Hmm.
Like they everyone loved me. I loved everyone. I loved giving Bible studies to my students. I loved going out to service. I loved the whole thing. And this was before I realized I was like confronted with the dark side of the politics. And this is what showed me the dark side.
Hmm.
I got into an accident in my truck. I got in a wreck and my truck flipped over. It was like I had a Silverado Z71 and there was some wet streets and I flipped over into the ditch and what's it called? It scared me, and after that I never drove crazy again. I've been a responsible ass driver ever since that. The witnesses though, they used that instance
Hmm.
as a way to try to humble me. I was already a regular pioneer, and I was doing a lot of things. And one day after the meeting, they brought me into the little room in the back, and they gave me the rundown. They said, "Hey, um, we heard rumors that you're driving recklessly. You know, so you really gotta And I'm like, yeah, I crashed. Like I owned up to it. I was like, yeah, like I had an accident. Like I'm gonna be careful when I drive. I'm not trying to like endanger anybody. Like whenever we go out or whatever.
Hmm.
So that's how they didn't like that. They didn't like my attitude. They wanted me to like cower. They wanted me
Mm.
to like, oh, like I'm sorry. Like they wanted me to like fear losing my privilege.
Okay.
I'm the way that I am. I'm really nonchalant about my shit. Like I either have it or I don't. And if I have it, who the fuck are you to tell me, what I can do with it? And uh, uh, that's the way that I was raised because like when I really believed when I was a witness, I really, really believed, and I really, really believed that Jehovah was like on my side. And I couldn't understand why they wanted me to no longer be a pioneer if being a pioneer was everything I had ever known.
Right.
And they were like, no, you need to humble yourself and recognize that you have a problem with your driving.
Hmm.
And I was like, I was like, I realized what they wanted me to do. They wanted me to break, like my they wanted to break me down. They wanted me to admit that I wasn't right. So then
Okay.
they told me they're like if you can't humble yourself, then you cannot be a regular pioneer. And they gave me a week to think about it. So for that whole week, I fucking thought about it, man. And that week was a really dark week for me. And then the next Sunday, I went back, and they, after the meeting, they brought me back in, and they're like, "So did you think about it?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I told them, I was like, "You guys are like almost asking me to be untruthful and to like admit that I have like some sort of speeding and driving problem
Was there like
when
a
I
bunch of guys against you and
right."
like all standing around you and you had to sit down?
Yeah, like
Like
there was three,
intimidation?
three, three elders in the room, and I'm the only one there. And there's three elders around me, and they're telling me that I need to admit that I have a
And you're
problem.
basically a kid. You're 18.
Yeah, so,
Legally
so
an
I
adult, but let's be honest,
It's
exactly
it's
you're a
it's a
kid.
power play.
It's a
It's
power
it's
play.
it's
it's just
so
trying
so
to exert their control and power over
Bullying.
somebody.
Yeah.
Bullying
so
is
so,
bullying's
so
another
here's
term. Yeah.
here's where things get nasty.
Hmm.
I tell them, I'm like, you got like I told them, for me a lie is a lie, and if I
Yeah.
lie and tell you guys that I have a problem when I don't, for me that's as much of a lie as saying I don't have a problem when I do. And I was like I'll drive better if that's what you guys want to hear, but I'm not admitting to, and they said too, they're like, we've had complaints from people who said that you were driving recklessly. So I was like, okay, who are they? Like, tell me who they are. And they're like, they're not going to tell you that. So then I told them this. I was like, ask my friend, ask your ministerial servants, ask them if I drive recklessly. And they got mad, and this is when they made it clear to me. They said no because they will lie for you.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, okay, I get what's going on. You guys aren't gonna get other people to turn on me. So
Right.
the only way that you guys can get me is by literally just getting me for whatever. And me
Anything.
being
Yeah.
like, I was literally a naive, innocent little fuck before then. I had no idea what was going on to me. I
Mhm.
went home that night and I cried like a baby because I lost my pioneering. I didn't want to stop being a pioneer. When I was in it, and I didn't understand. It really felt like that. I felt
Yeah,
like
you were
now
already
looking back,
brainwashed for in a certain terms.
and
They
and
they 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 made you feel like you need something that's not even really a thing. It's a
right.
made up thing that they gave
So
you. Here's a
so
made up thing. Here, you can have this. And then as soon
yeah,
as you start liking it, oh, I love this. This is awesome. Let me have that back. It's like taking a puppy away from a kid.
exactly.
Yeah.
But again, like that's like almost the
That's the
it's
mental
almost like that
game. That's
probe.
the brainwashing.
Yeah, it's I don't know, man. It's so that was my first like run-in with it, and then like after that, I realized I was like, okay, these guys aren't playing fair. Like these elders, like something's up. And then like I like, you know, my friends' elders in different congregations, they didn't put up with the bullshit that I was putting up with. Like
Hmm.
one time I went out to service. Like this is where I started realizing that postmodernism had like an effect on the witnesses because like there's something about that philosophy because I went out preaching and I have my long sleeve shirt and it's hot. I roll my sleeves up, and I got short sleeves and long sleeves, But if it's hot and I'm wearing a long sleeve, every now and then I'll roll it up. I literally had one time I got home from after the meeting, an elder pulled me to the side and he said, "Hey, you shouldn't roll your sleeves at service because you look too aggressive. We don't want to look aggressive to homeowners.
He's holding
So
you by your
please,
shirt. Hey, kid.
yes,
Yeah, you look too
literally, the
aggressive.
elders literally telling me I can't roll my sleeves because it's hot outside and we're preaching.
Hmm.
So right, so it's like
That's
I
another
started
mind
thinking about
control
it.
thing.
Like, yeah,
He's
but
gaslighting you basically. He's finding shit to pick on you about because he knows he can pick on you and he's gonna try to put himself over on top of you.
in 2011, my sister had her graduation party, and we had a ton of I had all these Jehovah's Witness friends from all around Houston come in for the party, and you can actually find this video on YouTube if you look up Galnarez graduation.
Mm-hmm.
I sang to my sister. I sang her a Rascal Flatts song, and then right after I sang her that song, I had the DJ put on like some club song, and everyone rushed to the dance floor. We start partying.
Cool.
One of the elders got so mad at the club music that he got up and asked the DJ to stop playing the music. This was in 2011.
You live in
Now,
Footloose.
here's how crazy it is. Right, this is where it starts getting really crazy.
Yeah.
I had no idea what Footloose was,
All
and then
right.
I think
Guess
like right after
you're born in
2011,
1992. Yeah.
yeah, right. I think in 2011, the remake of Footloose came out, and
Right.
and some friends played it, and I'm watching this fucking movie, and I'm like, I'm fucking living through this shit. Like elders telling the people they can't dance. This is going on the 70s in some bumfuck town with Kevin Bacon. This is
80s.
2011 in Houston, and
Yeah.
my elders are getting mad because we're dancing to party rock, which is like the most unoffensive,
It's kid stuff.
pop.
Yeah.
It's not even like gangster rap. No.
It's
It's
kid
party
stuff.
rock.
Yeah. It's party
Yeah,
rock. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
the elders are mad at us because we're shuffling and we're all having a blast, and they're like, "No, you can't dance like that because it's not right." And
Leave space for Jesus.
yeah, I couldn't. I'm telling you, Jeremy, I fucking woke up like that day when I saw the elder get up to go talk to the DJ.
Mhm.
I felt like kicking him out. I was like, what in the world are we doing? Like
That
seriously,
was the
like
breaking point for you,
no, yes and no. Like
or that was one of them.
it was one of the breaking points. I didn't have a breaking point.
Okay.
I s- I
Let's get to
I
that. Let's get to that subject. I want
okay.
to hear about how you got
So
out of it and then how you're helping people. That's the meat.
yeah, well, we can. Yeah, that'll be a good thing to like end on too. That's like the biggest part, I guess.
Yeah.
I got so I lose my privileges. I get disheartened and I get discouraged and I
Mhm.
lose my faith. I guess not in Jehovah, not in God, but I'm disillusioned with the witnesses. I'm like, this is bullshit. This is crazy, and I can't believe that. Like one of the things that gets hard is that you don't understand. One of the things that fucks with you is that everyone else around you, their life is perfect, but yours is fucked up because you're paying the price for your actions.
I
And
think that they're lying to you, man. Their life is not perfect. No one's life is perfect.
no. I mean in terms of all these other witnesses, they can go and comment and like
Mm.
the wit- because they're subservient.
Right.
The elders are just, they don't give them any bullshit. But me, because I always spoke up and because I always wanted to do things my way, I always, got noticed.
I
And
got you.
that was the
Yeah.
lesson that I had to learn. I was like, oh, okay. Uh, uh, I I started, I was about 18, 19, and we would go to weddings. And I remember looking like at the wedding, and I remember like, people getting married. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I'm never gonna have a Jehovah's Witness like wedding. It's not gonna happen like this for me. Like the both of us in front of the church, and I would sit up there and I would, me being 18, I would think about it. I'd be like, yeah, I want to date someday. And, and you're 18, you're full of hormones, like I was already masturbating like all the time. You're like there's no way to stop it. Like everyone I knew, most witnesses I knew masturbated. It was just an issue of, like not getting carried away with it because, like it's just normal. Like how are you not gonna fucking masturbate? But like, for us witnesses, the line was really sex. You don't have sex because then you do get kicked out. If you have sex
Right.
before marriage, you get shunned. So that was always my boundary. I was like, no matter what, I can't do that. I can't do that. And I was 18, 19, and it started to hit me. I was like, I'm not gonna like grow old in this thing,
Hmm.
And then like started reading Nietzsche, and then I remember Nietzsche is the first one who made me think of it because Nietzsche talks about the great separation, how every individual must come to this point where he has to separate from his parents, from the thing that he knew, and he must go out into the end. That spoke to me because I was already ready to jump, but what I lacked was the courage. I had no idea how I was going to tell my parents that I no longer believed. I had no idea how I was going to get by, like no longer having everyone no longer talk to me. I had no idea how it was going to happen. So um, this is where I think uh, uh, this is the part that if I am fucked up, if I do have some sort of PTSD, I think it's because of this. It's because
I'm just
of
getting a little bit of feedback on your line there. Some.
oh, sorry about that.
Yeah.
Did you get all of it?
Yeah. Can you back up just a little bit?
Oh yeah. Um,
You said you were
part
becoming
if I
disillusioned.
am
You felt like you couldn't live being shunned. Then go ahead from there.
so uh, I knew that a change was coming. I knew that a separation was coming, and I like that that feeling when you have a test and
Hmm.
you can't sleep the night before.
Yeah.
That's what
Anxiety.
every day. Yeah, that's what every day felt like for me. Just for years, like for 2 years, just every day, because I knew I had to leave, and I didn't leave yet. I was still living at my parents' house. I was still going to meetings, but I wouldn't comment. I wouldn't do anything. I would just go. They have this term for it. It's called PIMO, physically in, mentally out.
Oh, okay.
And you're there. You go to the meetings, but your head's not there anymore. You're not participating. You're not thinking about it. I knew that the separation was coming, and that anxiety was there. And uh, uh, I remember, I think I was 21, and I met this girl. She was 18,
I knew
and
that was coming.
yeah, and we hit it off, and uh, we started having sex, and we had sex for about 6 months, and then
That's a long time.
at the yeah, but those 6 months were like long, man. Those six
Oh, you
months,
mean
like
several times over the 6 months, not just started
yeah,
having sex and
we had
continued for
no
6 months. Like, holy shit,
Jesus,
you're a
Jeremy,
badass, dude.
6 month long boner.
Yeah.
So
Like 3 minutes.
no, so yeah, we had sex for the course of 6 months, and
Yeah.
like when I tell you that I had like suffering, like sometimes I would have sex and like I would drive home. I wouldn't cry, but like I would realize that God hated me. You know,
Right.
I
It's
would
all that
have
shit
the
they put in your mind. All
yeah,
that
yeah, like
brainwashing.
that. I would feel it. I would be like, but then at the bottom, like I would feel it, but then right before it would get to me, I would be like, no, if God is real, He would understand.
Mhm.
That no matter what, that little voice always saved me, and that little voice always persisted in my head. It was like, if God was real, I think He would understand. And like being liberal, like with stuff, I think started helping me out. Like I started thinking about curse words, and I would be like, like I would every now and then, like an elder would say shit, and it would be funny,
Mhm.
and like I would think about it, and I would be like, why is it funny when an elder says shit? But when an 18-year-old kid says fuck, it's horrible, and he shouldn't say that.
Well, those are
You know,
all
and then
sounds coming out of your mouth, and you give
right,
them the power they have. You can
I
sit there and accept it, or you can sit there and say, "Oh, that's a powerful word." You just gave it power.
yeah, Lenny Bruce, you know, he said it. You give words power when you cower. You
That's
know,
right.
they're nothing if you don't give them everything they have. And that's when I think the first time I had the thought where I remember thinking to myself, the word luck is 75% the same as the word fuck.
Yeah,
So if the so you know the word luck must be 75% wrong. You know, you can't fucking say that shit.
99%
Uh, I
actually. Yeah,
I started you know like seeing all these little little details where I realized I would be like, why would God get mad at an elder for cursing? Well, no, he wouldn't. So then why would he get mad at me? And then it hit me like he wouldn't.
why
And then
does your
you know I
God
started
speak English?
right, and then
So
you
you
know
speak
unless he
your first language is probably, was it English or was it Spanish?
no, it was Spanish.
Right. So what if you cuss in Spanish? Is it worse than cussing in English? You gotta. These are all stupid rules that like a guy like me doesn't get, right? Because if my
It's
first language is English, and then I also speak Japanese, y-
right. Um,
the word is like Lenny Bruce said, it has all the
I
power that I
think
give it. Yeah,
that's actually really interesting because certain so
Jesus
within
would
the
have spoke
Spanish
Arabic.
side, yeah, within the Spanish side of Jehovah's Witnesses, because Cuban Spanish is different than Mexican Spanish.
Hmm.
Certain curse words are not curse words in the other
It works. It
in the
works the
other
same. It works the same way in Japanese. Like in
right,
English, you can say to someone, "Suck my dick," as an insult, right? But
right.
if you say those words in Japanese, it's like, are you a homosexual person trying to get me to suck your dick? What's going on here?
Right.
It's not an insult.
There's
It's like a
no
there's no
yeah,
connection there. Yeah.
yeah. It's sort of like that, but like I mean, the way that always thought about it was if God's real, he understands if the you know if the hypothetical God is real, you don't have to you don't have to explain yourself to him. He already understands what you're trying to explain. If he's really omniscient, if he can actually see everything, if he can see everything in your mind at all times, why even bother telling him how you feel? He already knows.
Yeah, and this is the
And
problem with the argument of free will. So God
right,
gave you
yeah,
the ability to use free will, but if you use it, he'll put you in hell.
right, and that's the argument. The argument is, well, he knows what you think, but he wants you to say it anyway. You know,
Right.
and so I started thinking, all these little thoughts, and I was like, okay, I knew something better was coming, and I was and I convinced myself. I was like, okay, uh, I already dug my hole. I
Mm.
dug my grave. I already sinned. I already had sex, and I didn't. I was scared though. I was really fucking scared, and the girl that I was with, she got mad at me because I didn't want to date, and like looking back, I actually really liked her. She was a pretty cool girl, but um, she got mad because I didn't want to date. I didn't want to date because I didn't want to date being a witness because I how oppressive the witnesses are with dating. I didn't want any of that. I didn't want
Right.
chaperone. I didn't. I liked her and I loved what we had. We had a regular ass fucking relationship. I wanted to hold on to that, but
Hmm.
I knew that she didn't want it, and and the way that she played her cards was pretty bad too. She got mad at me because I didn't want to date, and she went and told the elders on us. So she
Oh.
told the elders that we were having sex. So that forced me. She forced my hand. I had to go tell my elders that we were having sex, and then I got kicked out. I got shunned, but she didn't. They
Okay.
kept her in.
Yeah, because
So
she
yeah.
made the first move.
Well, yeah. The way that the elders looked at it is, I was the door to to the world for her. I was the bad influence. So I had to be punished, not her.
You and your reckless driving.
Yeah, me and my reckless boning, so I couldn't keep my hands off of her, man.
Of
No,
course, you're a
but
kid. Yeah.
we're kids. This is what people don't
You
get,
can't
man. When you're a
stop
kid and
teenagers
you're
from
told not to
fucking.
have sex,
Yeah.
yeah, it's the dumbest thing you can tell a kid, man. You're 18 and you're full of hormones
The whole
and
abstinence thing is ridiculous. Instead of
yeah,
telling
and
kids don't fuck, you should tell them here's how to fuck safely.
it, it's the whole prohibition argument.
Yeah.
It really is. It's like s- just say no will never work,
Mm.
and just say yes doesn't work either. You have to fucking give people education. you know, and
let's hop to like how you got out,
okay,
and
right.
then how you're helping people get out, and then we'll talk about your book, and then we'll wrap it up.
cool. So uh, I confessed. The brothers talked to me. They it was 2 meetings.
Hmm.
They told me. I was really scared. I didn't want to go out, and I appealed. When they told me that they were going to disfellowship me, I tried to drag it out as long as I could, and I
Hmm.
appealed, and I wrote a letter and everything, and they rejected it. And once they rejected, I knew they were going to reject it, so they told me to show up because they were going to read the verdict. It's like it's like a court, man. It's like a kangaroo court
It's a
when you're
kangaroo
there, like,
court because
yeah,
any other if the NFL behaved like that, they would shut the NFL down.
right. So so they, but like, so they shunned me. I tell my parents, like, it broke my parents' heart. My, it took the biggest toll was my mom. My mom and I don't really, we have a real, the relationship is almost there, but
Hmm.
it's not a real, mother son relationship, and it's not what I wish it could be. It with my dad isn't baptized, but he goes, and
It goes because
he
your
sort
mom
of believes.
goes. Yeah.
Yeah, my mom she got baptized, and she believes. And my mom's brought a lot of people in. My mom's
Yeah.
sisters got in because of my mom. Um,
But I think I understand your dad. Your dad goes because he doesn't want to argue with your mom.
yeah, but he's still traditional enough
Yeah.
that he got mad at me. Like he's anti weed. He's anti.
It's a different
He's
generation,
pretty.
man.
My dad's pretty conservative, so
Yeah.
it's still up his alley. He won't enforce things with me. And my dad, one of the reasons why my dad never joined is because he always loved smoking cigarettes. He's never given up his cigarettes.
Yeah. I'm a dad. I get how it goes. You know what? Um, your parents still love you, man, and I think that they're probably internally conflicted about what's going on. Because when you have a kid, you want to make sure you're connected with your kid, and you love your kids
Yeah,
no matter what they do. But she's got this little bug in her ear. Your mom's got this little bug in her ear. These guys who are telling her lies. I feel sorry for her, man, because like in a few years from now, you're still relatively young, so your parents must probably be my age. So in a few years from now, they're gonna look back on this and they're gonna be like, man, I wasted so much time that I could have enjoyed spending with my son because of this lie I keep telling myself. And I feel sorry
that
for them because of that.
yeah. So that's what you hope for. I knew what I was paying when I paid it. I knew what I was. I'm a regular pioneer. I would even dare say that I believed in Jehovah in a way that a lot of people probably didn't. I really fucking believed.
How do you feel now?
And it's bullshit, man. This shit is real.
Okay,
No,
yeah, it's not
it's not.
real, right?
Yeah,
It's
no,
a
it's not
Santa
real.
Claus story, but they just put him in a different robe or a different set of,
Yeah,
different world. It's a Santa
yeah.
Claus story.
It's I so me. What scares me, and what leads me to talk about this is how bad I used to believe, because
Hmm.
I let the brothers get in my head, and I felt that guilt, and I felt being powerless,
You
and
were
I felt that
manipulated.
pain.
It's not your
Yeah,
fault.
like you are being gaslighted. You are a victim, even if you think that they're helping you,
Yeah,
they're not. They're like, it's not for your good. Even if you're excelling there, they're holding you back everywhere else in life, and you
yeah.
don't understand it because you're part of that thing.
And
If
you've been
if you
part of it
saw
since you were a
yourself,
little kid. Yeah.
exactly. So I knew what I
I
was
went
getting
through
into.
this I went through a very similar thing that you did, and I came out the other side thinking, you know, I was mad. I was angry that I was lied to, and I was angry
Yeah,
that I had wasted so much time. I was angry that all the other kids could play basketball on Saturday and join the basketball team, but
right.
I couldn't. I couldn't because we were Seventh Day Adventists, right? And I was thinking like I missed out on all this stuff. But later on,
That,
when I was like 13, 14 years old, I got very serious into martial arts.
mhm.
So serious that I started competing and started winning national statewide Texas tournaments, right? Like the AOK back in those days, the Amateur Organization of Karate. I was winning those kind of state level tournaments, and my mom started to notice that, and she's like, "Oh, this kid's
Oh,
good. This kid's good." So she
yeah,
started to pay attention to me, and she started to want to take me to these tournaments and stuff like that. And then that got her out of like going to church,
yeah,
and that those little seeds were planted, and so on and so forth. But
yeah.
why don't you do this? Why don't
It's
you tell us what you're doing now to help people who are in your situation? Tell us about what you're doing to help them, and then tell us about the book you're writing.
all right. So, the people. I don't have a huge outreach. I don't have a huge platform. I've helped a ton of people locally. I have a lot of Houston friends that I've personally like. I've seen their and there's a ton of crazy stories. Uh, I've had one of my friends. She got a full ride scholarship to Sam Houston State, and
Nice.
the elders, as soon as she found out, the elders paid her a visit. They're like, "Hey, you shouldn't go to college," and she was like, "Yeah, not gonna happen." And I remember that year. That was maybe 2016. We hung out. She called me, and I went. It's weird because I'm like a reverse elder. The elders go to them, and then like when they leave, they call me, and they're like, "Hey, what the fuck just happened?"
Right.
So I remember we hung out, and I told her, and you know, like I like implored it to her. I was like, "Hey, you cannot throw away college."
Mm-mm.
And
Especially with a full
she
ride.
listened to me. She went, you know, and she's happy as fuck. She recently just came out. You know, she thought she was straight for a while, and she just came out as gay, and you know, she's happy as fuck, man.
Mm.
I have one of my best friends. Uh, he actually stopped talking to me when I got shunned,
Mm-hmm.
and then last year he himself got shunned
Right.
for a very crazy reason, and we started talking again,
All of a sudden,
and
he sees your side of things.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's
Forgive him.
yeah. I
Say
look, man,
like
look. That's what I'm
he was
saying.
he was brainwashed too, and now he's out of it.
Right.
Yeah. Forgive him.
Yeah. There's no rage and there's no anger on my behalf. You know, when I'm sitting here now talking about the witnesses, being able to look back at everything I did, you know, all the hundreds of Bible studies that I've been in, all the thousands of doors that I've knocked on,
All the
like
time you wasted.
yeah, it's like when you were talking about being a kid, dude. All my Saturday mornings, I don't know what it's like to wake up on Saturday and watch cartoons. We'd go
Mm-hmm.
preaching
Yeah.
every Saturday morning. I go preach. You know,
Yeah.
it's and it gave me, I think, a specific skill set with my words, and I think I can talk at a rate that other people can't because I was, you know, taught how to preach at a very early age. But at the same time, I didn't fucking want that. I wanted to be a kid. I wanted to be normal.
I want to watch Scooby Doo.
I think that a lot of kids are stuck in this really bad area where they have to do things because their parents are making them. I
Mm-hmm.
think that a lot of the witnesses, a lot of the young witnesses right now, if you're like a young witness and you're listening to this and you like it there, I think that it's fine. Honestly, I think that the worst aspects of being a witness are the disfellowshipping and the covering up of the pedophilia, which we didn't cover, but it's a whole fucking, you know, can of worms in itself of how bad they've been covering up, you know, the child abuse.
Okay.
Um, I think the shunning and the child abuse are the two unforgivable things, where it's like no matter what, I can't be part of that religion ever again because of
Mm.
that. I think that there are a lot of young witnesses that they're like in that gray area where I was in, where they see that their parents are stuck in this routine where it's meeting, and the kids almost want to break out of it, but the kids don't know how because they're kids. When you're a
Right.
kid, you're not going to take control of the household, and all of a sudden your parents are going to see the error of their ways, and they're going to bend over and say, "Oh, I'm so," you know. No, it's not going to happen. So
Mm-mm.
I think that the best advice for young kids out there is if you're like 15, 16, I think this is when you have to wake up. And this is when you have to, if your parents are deep in it and they're not going to help you, I think that this is where you have to come up with a plan because you need to get into college. Because if your parents aren't going to help you, college will. And you have to talk to your high school teachers. You have to tell them, hey, there is going to be zero support coming from my family. So I need you to help me. And your teachers will help you. But again, like not every high schooler knows how to do this. So, part of the work is also getting the message across. The other thing is, I think, sometimes I think in fractals, and like, in America you have the notion of sticking it to the man. I
Hmm.
think that we have to find a way to take that and compress it down to like a family level. Kids have to learn how to stick it to their parents, and I'm not talking about in a rude, and I'm not talking about in a rude, disrespectful manner, but I am talking about in a sense of respect and of, privacy, and of being a separate entity. When you're a kid, I am strictly of this belief. I don't think your parents should tell you what to believe. Not when
Yeah.
you're a kid.
Yeah.
Like how are you going to have an 11-year-old get baptized and for forever now? You're stuck in this cult that you chose to be in when you were 11. You were a kid, and
Yeah.
you signed a lifelong contract with this God who is going to kill you if you break the contract.
Hmm.
And you were 11. So like,
Yeah.
I think that there's this like, there's this urge to want to put your kids, like you want to put them, in this religion because it's going to be good for them, but I think that has to be resisted, and this is where, I find 100% common cause with atheists, not just in terms of, I just think with every religion, like when you're strict and your kids aren't into it and you're making them go, it's so disgusting. Even when I was a witness, and I really fucking love Jehovah, it still felt bad. It still felt weird when I would see the kids come in and their parents are like, oh look, come on, comment, and the kids are like, oh. And it's just, I would remember feeling, I'd be like, oh, your kid doesn't want to be here, like why, like it's so rude, but that's the way that it has to be
That's what
done.
was done to them.
Yeah, because
They're
if I don't
perpetuating
do this to
the
you now,
abuse.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're not going to be deep in it, and
Yeah.
so again, it's this habit that has to be kept on going. It's like almost like a drug, like addiction. You're
Right.
so deep in that, no, I don't want to be weaned off. I want the whole dose every day. And
Right.
if my kid starts to, want to be weaned off, then, so it everything is done for the momentum. You don't want the momentum to slow down,
Right.
and I think that is what has to be attacked. I think that, so on the other hand, if you know friends that are witnesses, or if you're a high schooler and your friend is Jehovah's Witness and he's shy and he has that thing where he it's hard for him to, to blend in with society, like it's gonna be on you to help out your Jehovah's Witness friend, like ask him out, bring him out, like take him out to lunch every now and then. If you have a coworker who's a Jehovah's Witness, like it shouldn't be on you to prove to the witnesses that it's not dangerous out here, but it's gonna fall on you because the witnesses don't have anyone else to make that argument for them. Yeah.
So if I understand what you're saying, you're saying don't take it upon yourself to try to convince them that their religion's wrong. Just be a friend and
Yes. Yeah. That's it.
show
Right.
them that it's not scary outside of their little
Yes.
box that they've
That's
built
it.
around themselves. I think
Exactly.
that's what I understand you're trying to say.
Right, because there is this cult of fear and alienation within the witnesses.
Yeah.
Like the witnesses, dude. Fuck, I didn't look up the date for the story, but I think this was last year, 2019, bro. In
Hmm.
Michigan, this family got shunned, and the wife and the husband, they killed their kids and then they killed themselves.
Jesus.
Because, man, like when you really believe this, there is nothing else outside of this, and like again, like not a lot of people, like even my friend who's started talking to me again recently, it took him a while to get how serious I was about him, but I told him, I was like, look, man, like I would prefer to die than to be taken to the kingdom hall by force.
Yeah.
Seriously, I would by force. No, I'd rather die. And he was like, no, seriously. I was like, yeah, seriously. That's how high my convictions are. I would rather now. Would I go for like, yeah, I'm sure there's some scenarios where I would return, like I don't, I'm not afraid of the place, but again, the idea of being forced to go somewhere, yeah, like again, if I am fucked up, if I do have PTSD,
Hmm.
it's probably with authority in terms of that, where I don't want to blindly follow authority because fuck you. Explain to me why you're doing it. Okay, okay, I'm sorry. I was so negative. I see that you have reasons.
Right.
But for me, that I'm so ready to be cynical because of the way that the witnesses were to me, in
Right.
in the sense that you 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 know that you're not crazy, but everyone else is following the rules, so you have to double check, and a sane person shouldn't have to double check that they're not crazy. So just by virtue of trying to prove to yourself that you're not crazy, a lot of witnesses, when they come out, there's this gap as soon as you come out, because there's this gap between being a non-believer. Okay, what am I now? Is science real, or is Christianity real? How much of evolution is real? If the witnesses are wrong and they're lying to us about that, how can I trust anything? And this is where a lot of XJWs get caught in no man's land, and then they turn bitter, and then they go to Reddit, and then they're just bitter assholes that
Mm.
all they do is just criticize the witnesses, criticize worldly people, and
Right.
that's it. They never are never going to move on with their life.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I
they're
think
angry that they
that's,
were lied to.
yes.
Yeah.
And they
It's
they
normal.
they can't. You go ahead.
I
Yeah.
said it's normal. It's normal for them to be angry that
Yes.
they were lied to.
Right. But it's not healthy,
It's not
because if you
healthy, but
again
it's better
no
to
if
get it
right
out. Yeah, but
to get it
you got to
out,
move
right.
on eventually.
and
John,
and
uh,
that's what I'm aiming with my book.
awesome.
With my book, I'm trying. It's really a guide. So the working title so far, it's XJW, mastering the self by surviving religion.
Okay.
And
When is it going
the
to be
idea
out?
is, yeah, it's a guide. It's not going to be too deep. But it is gonna. I am gonna go into like certain Christian mysteries. Some things that fascinate people about Christianity, because
Okay.
just because you stop being a witness doesn't mean that Christianity goes away. Christianity is very much a part of American everyday life, and it's not going to go away anytime soon. It's look. You're either Christian or you're anti-Christian, right? You're still
Mm,
either you're still either in you're in either one of
I'm
those
pro
two camps.
reality.
Well, the definitions are getting better,
Mm,
but there's still a clear side there's still a clear divide between the believers and the non-believers.
right.
It's influencing a lot of culture today,
Right.
even if
But the thing is that once you understand the time to believe in something is once it's met its burden of proof.
right.
That really opens up a lot of doors and closes a lot of doors as well. So
Yeah,
once something has met its burden of proof, then it's okay to believe it. If it hasn't met its burden of proof, it's okay to say I don't know, and it's
right.
also okay to say you're full of shit. You know.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
until you come to me with evidence, with proof, I'm not going to believe it. My
we need
default position is not to believe something.
Jeremy, we need to do acid together, and I'll show you how real God is. I
Yeah,
saw
well,
part of him there. I didn't see
wouldn't it
Jehovah.
wouldn't be it
I
wouldn't be
didn't
my
see.
first time, but yeah.
No,
Okay, John, I think that's a good place for us to leave it here. We've been going for about 2 hours now, so
yeah, no,
it
no, I
went by
know.
really quick.
Yeah,
We're gonna have to do this again, man. It's because I think you got a lot more in you, and I think you got a lot more ways to help people. But I want to say thank you for coming on the show today. Thank you for sharing with us your experiences, and thank you for taking this time out to hopefully help some people who might listen to this.
yeah. I've been on podcasts before, and I've always gotten positive. I've gotten fucking dude. I've gotten beautiful messages from from people who read them, and yeah, like I got other shit going on, like other than my book. I'm trying to get something, like I want to do like a series, I think too,
Mhm.
like some videos, and I got some things about witnesses that I want to do just to help a little bit more. But even these conversations, man, like it's so hard to talk about it,
Right,
and just having these things out there helps so much, because a lot of people want to know what it's like to have those conversations, because they literally don't know where to go to get them.
right,
So these conversations, man, this what you're doing,
mhm,
having a podcast where you're, even if it's not just Jehovah's Witnesses, any religion,
right. Oh,
having that
it's
atheist perspective is really healthy, and it does a lot of good, because it shines a light, a good amount of light onto on belief and philosophy and what the fuck we're really doing here.
right. Tell people where they can get in touch with you and how they can reach you. Where can you be found?
On Instagram and Twitter, I'm at Madrola, and on Facebook, I'm at Jon Galnarez. That's pretty much it. You know.
All right, folks. So you heard it here. If you want to reach out to Jon, get some more of his perspectives, get some more of his stories, he's got a lot of interesting stories. I'm sure we're going to have him back again. Reach out to him on either Facebook or Instagram. Jon, thank you so much for coming around tonight, and have a good evening.
Of course, brother. Thank you, man.
All right. Bye-bye.
Adios.
Thank you.
All right. Guys, that
We're
was
done.
brilliant, man.
Yeah,
Thank
that
you
was
guys
fun,
so
guys.
much.
Yeah.